Hello, good morning. It's just gone 5 AM on Friday, the 4th of May. I'm just setting off on my second 400km DIY Audax of the year. So the start to this second 400 kilometres is much lighter than the same one I did literally 3 weeks ago. You're really noticing the mornings getting lighter, which is really nice. It's going to be the same format as my previous 400 DIY, which I called the smallest town in Britain 400. I plan to do 2 food stops. I've got my own food in the saddlebag for top-ups. There's going to be a sleep stop somewhere around about the 200-215 mile mark. So it goes from my hometown Bath, which is a spa, up to Leamington Spa and then back, so you get the idea of the ride title. This ride is helping build up my endurance and my fitness, preparation for the Solstice 1200 DIY. I'm planning in 6 weeks time now. It's like a parachute jump. The ground is rapidly approaching, so it gives me a chance to test out my sleep system yet again. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to sleep. It's going to test my ability to find somewhere where I'm tired. That's always a good skill to practice. And also I thought I'd maybe explain why I like the 5 AM start so much, why it just really suits me, how I discovered that through one massive mistake I made many years ago. Cheers, thanks. So I just had my breakfast in Wetherspoons. I'm going to sit here for about 15-20 minutes, just let it digest. So up to now the route's been exactly the same as my last 400 last month, but now I'm going to deviate. Instead of going over into Wales westwards, I'm heading northeast up to Leamington Spa, and then there'll be a big loop. Bear with me, I need to read some place names out. Down through Banbury, and then it's spelt Towcester. I'm not sure if it's spelt Toaster, or even Towcester. It's where Silverstone is. That may well be my second eat stop. That should be late afternoon, early evening. Well, depending on how I feel, I may press on to Buckingham. I've routed the ride through both of the high streets, so it's given me the options. And then evening down through Oxford, and sometime between Oxford and skirting south of Cirencester, I'll think about sleeping, and then it's on to Malmesbury, then due south back to Bath. The outline of the route is very much like, it looks a bit like South America on steroids actually. I'm now in Leamington Spa, sat in the park right by the river. It's gorgeous here actually. So this afternoon when I leave here, I'll be doing a big loop, heading southeasterly and then sort of like curving back round to Oxford this evening. I mentioned at the start I'd explain why I like the 5 AM start, so bear with me. So most of my working life I did early shifts, and when I say early I mean 5 AM in the morning till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. In the winter I would do a lot of overtime, work right from 5 in the morning till 5 at night, accumulate a lot of money, and then I would have the afternoons off in the summer to enjoy myself. So I absolutely loved that shift. It suited me down to the ground. I had to beg, steal and borrow, quite often had to pay people to work Saturdays for me when I wanted to do Audax rides. Well, I started riding Audax in the mid-80s, about 84, 85 I think. And I kept hearing about Paris-Brest, but there was no internet in those days, and it seemed to be like a secret language. A lot of it I just didn't understand. And it wasn't until my partner at the time rode Paris-Brest in 1991 I realised what it was all about. And then in 1995 I decided to ride it, and so I did all the qualifiers, went to France and pretty much made every mistake in the book. I didn't even use saddle cream in those days, didn't know about it. So I can't believe I even finished that first PVP, in all honesty, looking back. I even started it with terrible saddle sores. I didn't taper off, I just suddenly stopped doing massive mileage about 5 days before and then hoped it would heal, but it didn't, and I was in a lot of pain during PVP. It was the fatigue that nearly did for me. So I don't regret it at all. It was a fantastic experience, but it was brutally, brutally hard. And I remember this one memory, I can still picture it now. Now, when I finished, the people I was staying with in France, they'd put me and my friend Julian up, and they came to meet me at the finish, because Julian had crashed out, he was already in plaster. I remember talking to them and seeing four of them. I was actually seeing double of everything. And I remember seeing some of the people in Audax, experienced riders I've come to know. And even though I was on the verge of hallucinating, I remember thinking, they look like they've just walked down the shops. Why do I feel so bad? I couldn't figure it out. And I went back to this family's house, and my friend Julian, he'd been hospitalised, so he had crashed out of PBP, so he had been back for a couple of days. He told me afterwards I slept for nearly 24 hours, and his French family were really concerned. They couldn't wake me up, and the smell was really bad, and they were quite close to calling a doctor. They'd never witnessed anything like it before, and he talked them out of it. In 1999, when PBP came up again 4 years later, I just couldn't put myself through that sort of stress again. I just couldn't face it. In 2003, I decided I wanted to ride it a second time, and I asked a lot of people for tips, and I got the usual, you should be here at that time, Fourgère, Carhay. They were just names to me, they mean nothing. Even now, the night after PBP, I can't remember the names of the controls, so people telling me you should sleep at Carhay, you should be at Fourgère, and it meant nothing to me. One evening, I was on the phone to a friend of mine who's since passed away, lovely guy. I remember saying to him, just tell me what I did wrong. He was one of those people that I'd seen at the finish, 8 years before. Looked like he had just been for a ride down the shops. I remember I said to him on the telephone, what did I do wrong? Can you give me any advice? And, be harsh and frank. I'll take it on the chin. And I remember thinking, I did say be frank, but I didn't think I'd be that frank. He said to me, you're a postman, right? You're used to early mornings. All your qualifiers were early in mornings? And I said, yep. And he said, did you ride any events that started at night? I said, I rode the hard board that started at 1 o'clock in the morning. How did you get on? I said, I didn't at all. I was shattered. It was brutal getting through the night. The second half of the ride, it was just a case of survival. I remember him saying, what on earth possessed you to start at 10 p.m? In those days, there were 3 start groups. The fast vedettes started at 8 p.m. The bulk of the riders had the maximum time allowance of 90 hours, started at 10 p.m. And then there was a third group, the randonneurs, started at 5 a.m. the next morning, hours behind the first 2 groups. And they had a time allowance of only 84 hours. So I said to him, it was a ride into the unknown. I didn't even know if I could ride the distance. I wanted the maximum of time allowance. He went through all the reason why it was such a terrible mistake. And as he was telling me, I remember thinking, how could I have been so stupid? And it made so much sense. My metabolism, my body clock was all set for early mornings. That's when I'm at my best. I'm quite often drifted off into sleep mid-evening by 10 o'clock. I'm quite often in bed at 10 o'clock. What on earth possessed me to consider starting at 10? Well, it was the time allowance. I didn't want the extra pressure. So he said, your body clock was completely working against you. And when you were tired, say after 18 hours, if you start at 5 a.m. in the morning, by the time you're tired after about 17, 18 hours, it's about 1, 2 o'clock in the next morning, time to sleep, the middle of the night. Starting at 10 p.m, you're very tired riding through the night, you're very tired during the next day, and then your body clock's trying to tell you to sleep at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. In August, it just didn't work. So everything seemed to make so much sense. So then he said to me, how do you get on your 600 qualifier? I said about 34, 35 hours, quite comfortable with that. He said, if you double that, 2 600s, that would be 70 hours, even allowing for the extra fatigue and more sleep required. In fact, you'll need less. You've got an extra 14 hours. Firstly, your body clock's working with you. Secondly, you'll pass through the controls much, much quicker. You won't have the bottlenecks at the controls where there's hundreds and hundreds of people trying to get through in big groups. You'll be in a much smaller group. You may be 6 hours beyond on the road. but getting through the controls with your body clock working with you, you'll probably be in a more sophisticated groups who ride better together, and that's exactly what happened. So when I rode it in 2003, I took that advice. I rode the second Paris-Brest Paris. I went over with Graham Baxter Sporting Tours. Me and a guy Dave who they'd sat next to me on the coach, and then we ended up sharing a room. We realised they'd put us together deliberately because we were the only two in our group that were doing the 5 AM start. Consequently, we were the first two back because we arrived back. I remember we both arrived back within an hour of each other. I think about 4 or 5 AM on the Friday morning. We sort of said, this is great, you know. We can sleep the whole day and then go to celebratory meal 7 PM tonight. We were both up by midday, wide awake. We walked into town to get coffee, came back to the hotel. That's when the 90-hour group started coming in, and it looked like something out of Passchendaele. They were coming in, shell shock, sort of helping each other up the drive. And I remember thinking, that's exactly what I looked like 8 years ago. And it was such a difference. All the things my friends said that would work in my favour more than worked in my favour. And it wasn't just me being experienced, because my roommate Dave, it was the first Paris-Brest Paris for him, and he found exactly the same for me. It worked with his body clock. Just to be completely clear about this, I'm not saying that 5 AM is the right time to start all axes. I'm saying I worked out that 5 AM is the right time for me. My body clock, my circadian rhythms are all working with me rather than against me. When I tire and start to want sleep, it's at the usual time I would anyway, maybe a bit later than normal. What I would really urge people who are starting to increase the distance and wondering how they're going to cope is find out what works for you. Don't try anything out on a big ride that you haven't tried out, either in training or test rides. Experiment and then stick to what you know on the big events. So it's now 9:30 PM, so an update. I got to Buckingham where I had my second meal, had some sausage and chips, sat outside between about 6:30 and 7:15. Really nice evening there. And then the next leg to Oxford went really quickly. It's much closer than I remember. And I got to Oxford about 9 PM. And it took me about half an hour to get through Oxford. I'm now just in the little village Cumnor, so I've passed through Oxford. But I did stop there to get some food for the middle of the night, a sandwich just in case I get hungry, topped all my water up. So I'm not doing too badly for time. So in about 3 hours time, half midnight maybe, I'll be thinking about stopping. Hopefully I might get 3 hours sleep. Because at the moment my Garmin is predicting that I'm still going to finish at 3:30 in the morning. I'm trying to lose a little bit of time, but still don't want to finish that early. So somewhere soon after Highworth, I'll look for a small village and try and see if there's a church porch I can bunk down for a few hours. Well, it's now 12:10 and I'm in a bus shelter in a village just the other side of Highworth on the outskirts of Swindon. I've got about 47 miles left to go. I'm over the 200-mile mark. So here's my sleep system. Here's the Sinmat Exped sleeping mat, that's the yellow one, and the Nature Hike pillow, and here's the bivy bag that I'm going to unroll and put on top of that. So I found from the last few outings with the sleep mat and the pillow as well, because you inflate them with air, the temptation is to blow them right up, and I actually found them quite uncomfortable during the night, and I find myself letting a bit of air out, both the sleeping mat and the pillow. I'm not sure if you can see that. I've probably inflated it to half of its maximum, so I'm going to try that tonight. So there's the Soul Escape Light bivy laid on top of the sleeping mat. you can see it's, because it's a survival aid, it's got bright reflective Sol logo all over it. Any car coming by is going to like that up, so all I do is I make sure I turn it over the other side, which is plain orange. It's fairly open, this bus shelter, so anybody driving by will see me, but it's a very minor road in a very quiet village. Haven't seen a car for about the last 25 minutes. So I'll say good night, see you in the morning. Well, it's now 3:55 AM and I'm just about to hit the road for the final leg of this 400. So as I set off, Dawn is about just over an hour away. Hopefully I'll warm up by then. I'm heading through Cricklade, then quite a long leg along to Malmesbury, and then at Malmesbury turn due south to Bath. I got 5 hours 23 minutes to do 47 miles, so barring mishaps and me just completely seizing up, that should be adequate. So I'm now going to hit the road. Well, it's now about 7:45 and I'm about 7.5 miles from the finish, which is my house. I've just skirted down through Marshfield and I'm about to join the Fossway and then plunge down really steeply into Bath, down Bannerdown. But joining the Fossway reminds me of, one of the highlights of this ride. I crossed the Fossway soon after leaving Leamington Spa. That seems so long ago, less than a day. Long distance riding really does that. It really does alter your perceptions of time. I suppose one of the big highlights last night was coming through Oxford just as it's getting dark. All the really nice buildings and the colleges were just subtly lit with floodlights. It's really fantastic riding through there last night. Then the night ride was really good. I actually really enjoyed the bivvy as well. First thing this morning, quite cold. It's only about an hour or so. I took off quite a few of my layers. So I'm going to hop on my bike now, finish the ride, head home, see my darling wife, have some breakfast with her hopefully. So as usual, thanks very much for watching and till next time.